He was once a carefree college student, living for wild parties and endless drinks, a life full of fun, without worries, until that fateful night. He died and met Jesus. In the moment his soul left his body, he was shown a horrifying truth about alcohol, a truth that changed his life forever. What did Jesus reveal to him? Could alcohol be a far more dangerous temptation than we ever imagined? Listen to his story, because this might be one of the most important stories of your life. Hello, Eternal Bible Stories channel. I want to share my near-death experience, but I also want to remain anonymous. Please help me do that. More than 30 years ago, when I first told my family about this experience, they turned their backs on me. They called me insane. Some even said worse things. Even my own parents, whom I no longer have contact with, tried to force me into counseling with our church pastor. Why is it that people who claim to believe in God refuse to accept that He has the power to reveal things beyond this material world? Why do they dismiss those who have witnessed His divine truth? I have no room for negativity in my life anymore, which is why I choose to remain anonymous while sharing my story. If you are truly ready to listen, then here is what happened to me. My near-death experience happened in the early 1990s, when I was a college student. I lived a carefree life, indulging in endless nights of party and drinking, without a second thought about the consequences. That night was no different. My friends and I went bar hopping, drowning ourselves in alcohol, with my friends. The next, I felt my body overheating, suffocating. I stepped outside for fresh air, thinking I just needed a few minutes to recover. But when I went back in, the crowd danced wildly, but I felt like I no longer belonged there. After about 20 minutes of searching in vain, I realized that no one was coming back for me. They must have assumed I had left on my own. With no other choice, I decided to walk back to my dorm. The night was eerily quiet. The streets were empty, the dim glow of streetlights casting long shadows. I stumbled forward, my mind clouded by alcohol, but beneath the intoxication, a strange sense of unease crept in, an unsettling feeling that something was wrong. I reached a nearby bus stop and sat down on the bench, trying to clear my head. The stop was deserted, no sign of life anywhere. I told myself I would rest for just a moment before continuing my way home, but I had no idea how long that moment lasted, because I had blacked out. When I opened my eyes, everything was shrouded in darkness. The streetlights, the passing cars, the faint hum of the city, all had vanished. I had no idea where I was. I tried to stand up, but my feet didn't touch the ground. I couldn't feel my body at all. And then I looked down. I saw myself, still lying on the bench at the bus stop, motionless, lifeless. A chill ran through me, or at least what I thought was me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't touch anything. And that's when I realized I had left my body. I was no longer part of the physical world. Suddenly, an icy wind swept through me, carrying an unspeakable dread. I couldn't see it, but I could feel something there, something dark, something watching me. Then, without warning, I was pulled, yanked into the abyss by an unseen force. I had no control, no way to stop it. The world around me disappeared, replaced by an endless void, cold and filled with an overwhelming sense of despair. When I finally stopped falling, I found myself standing in a place darker than anything I had ever known. The sky above me was an empty void. The air was thick with silence, oppressive, suffocating. Around me, shadowy figures drifted aimlessly, without form, without purpose. There was no light, no warmth, only an overwhelming sense of hopelessness. And then the whispers began. At first they were faint, just murmurs in the void. But soon they grew louder, more distinct. Voices echoed from every direction, speaking in a language I did not recognize. They weren't just words. They carried deception, despair, and pure, unfiltered suffering. I wanted to run, I wanted to escape, but I had nowhere to go, and then I saw it. A towering shadow emerged from the darkness, shifting, writhing as if it were alive but without any defined form. I couldn't see its face, yet I knew it was looking at me. It didn't need to speak, yet its voice thundered in my mind. "You have belonged to me for a long time." I was frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Fear consumed me entirely. I felt myself being pulled into it, being dragged into something from which I would never return. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg for help. But who would hear me? Then, in the darkest moment of my existence, a radiant light erupted from above, shattering the darkness around me. It carried a power greater than anything I had ever known, a force so pure and overwhelming that it made the shadow recoil. The light engulfed me, filling me with an indescribable warmth, and from within it a voice rang out, strong, commanding, and filled with authority. "This is not where you belong." The moment I opened my eyes, I knew something was wrong, but not in a way that scared me. I was looking down at my own body, lying motionless on the bench. Yet I felt nothing, no fear, no urgency to return. Instead, an incredible lightness surrounded me, as if I had been freed from an invisible weight I had carried my entire life. The dizziness, the nausea, the sluggishness of my body, all gone. In their place was a clarity sharper than anything I had ever known. I was fully aware of myself, yet no longer inside my body. I wasn't unconscious, nor was this a dream. It was something beyond logic, beyond anything I had ever imagined. The strangest part? I wasn't afraid. No panic, no confusion, just a deep, unshakable peace, as if my soul instinctively understood that this was natural. Then I noticed my vision had changed. I could see everything, front, back, above, below, all at once. Every detail, every flicker of light was impossibly vivid, more real than anything I had ever experienced. And when I focused on something, I didn't just see it, I felt it, as if I were connected to everything around me. That was when I saw the light. At first it was a faint glow hovering above the ground, but as I gazed at it, it grew stronger, pulsing with a living radiance. It wasn't blinding, but warm, inviting. A deep hum resonated from it. Not a sound, but a vibration that filled me with an indescribable peace. I knew, without being told, that I had to go toward it. The moment I willed it, I began to rise effortlessly, drawn into the glow. The instant I passed through, I was engulfed in a love so pure, so overwhelming, that it consumed every part of me. Then I was moving, fast. Yet there was no resistance, no fear, only an accelerating sense of purpose. I was traveling through a shimmering tunnel, its walls shifting between colors beyond the earthly spectrum. It was mesmerizing. And I was not alone. Lights, other souls, moved with me. Though we did not speak, I felt their presence, their joy, their awe. In this place, words were unnecessary. Understanding came instantly, deeper than language. Then I heard the music. It wasn't sound, it was alive, a celestial harmony woven into the very fabric of existence. It didn't come from a single source, it was everywhere, flowing through me, becoming a part of me. I had never heard anything so beautiful. The tunnel expanded, opening into an infinite radiant space. Light emanated from all around, but there were no shadows. Only warmth, love, and the overwhelming sense that I was home. And at the center of it all, waiting for me, was a presence so powerful, so familiar, that I knew beyond a doubt I was about to meet the one who had called me here. As I drifted through the luminous expanse, a profound stillness settled over me. It was not emptiness, nor was it loneliness. It was something far greater. It was the absence of fear, the absence of doubt, the purest sense of belonging I had ever known. There was no cold, no hunger, no urgency, only the overwhelming embrace of peace, wrapping around me like a warm current in an endless ocean. Then, in the distance, a radiant light appeared. It wasn't just bright, it was alive. It pulsed with warmth, expanding and contracting as though it breathed, calling me forward. I felt no hesitation, no resistance. My very being was drawn toward it, compelled by an unseen force, or perhaps by a longing I had never before acknowledged. As I moved closer, a melody filled the space around me. It wasn't a song in the way I had understood music on earth. There were no instruments, no lyrics, yet it was the most beautiful harmony I had ever heard. It was the sound of creation itself, vibrating with a frequency that resonated deep within my soul. It was a song of love, of homecoming, of something beyond words. And then, stepping from within the brilliance of the light, I saw him. A figure emerged, clothed in a robe so white it seemed woven from the very essence of light itself. He moved effortlessly, his presence commanding yet gentle, exuding an authority that required no declaration. His eyes, deep, endless, filled with wisdom and compassion, locked onto mine, and in that instant I understood something beyond language. He knew me. Not just my name, not just my life. He knew everything, every thought, every triumph, every failure, every secret I had never uttered aloud. And yet, in that knowing there was no judgment, only love. A love so vast, so infinite, that it made every definition of love I had ever known seem small and incomplete. He smiled, a smile that carried the weight of eternity yet felt as personal as a whisper. And though his lips never moved, his voice filled the space around us, reverberating within the very core of my being. I have been waiting for you, my child. A strange mixture of awe and confusion swept through me. I barely found the strength to speak. You have been waiting for me? Yes, he replied, and since you are about to ask, I am Jesus, but I have been known by many names. Hearing those words, my mind reeled. I had not been a devoted believer. I had never sought him, never prayed with sincerity, never lived my life according to any divine purpose. Yet here he was, speaking to me as if I mattered, as if he had always known me, always watched over me. You have been brought here at this moment because you stand at a great crossroad in your life. The choices you make from this point forward will determine not just your future, but your purpose. A weight settled upon my soul. What choices? I asked, my voice trembling with an unfamiliar gravity. Jesus did not answer with words. Instead, he reached out, placing his hand gently upon my forehead. The moment his palm touched me, everything changed. In an instant, I was no longer standing in the light. I was somewhere else. The first vision unfolded before me. I saw myself sitting in a cold, sterile doctor's office. I was much older, but the years had not been kind. My body was frail, my skin a sickly yellow. Across from me, a doctor sat with a grave expression. His voice devoid of hope. Your liver has completely failed. There is nothing more we can do. I felt the crushing weight of regret as I watched my future self sit in stunned silence. I had wasted my life, drowning in alcohol, destroying my body, squandering my time. And now I was facing the inevitable consequence of my choices. Then, as quickly as it had come, the vision shifted. I was somewhere else, a community center, bright and filled with life. Young people surrounded me, their eyes filled with curiosity and hope as I spoke to them. I was older here too, but strong, healthy, alive in a way that my other self had never been. I was teaching, guiding, helping others find their way, and in that moment I understood. This was the life I could have, a life of meaning, of purpose, a life where my existence made a difference in the lives of others. When Jesus lifted his hand from my forehead, I gasped, my breath shaking with the weight of what I had seen. "These are your futures," he said. "One path leads to destruction, the other leads to life. The choice is yours." A deep unease settled within me. "But why me?" I asked. "Other people drink, other people make mistakes. Why am I being shown this?" Jesus smiled, a knowing, almost playful smile. "Have you ever seen a puzzle? Each piece must be placed precisely where it belongs for the picture to be complete. In the same way, every soul has a role in my Father's plan. I cannot tell you why you are important, but I can tell you that you are. And now, so do you." His words struck something deep within me. I had spent my life believing that I was just another person, insignificant, moving through existence without consequence. But here, in his presence, I understood that my life had meaning, that my choices mattered, not just for myself, but for those around me. Jesus gazed at me with a warmth so powerful it nearly unraveled me. "Now, return to the world and become the peace you were created to be." I wanted to respond, to say something, anything, but before I could, the light around me began to shift. A force beyond my control pulled me backward, dragging me away from him, away from the warmth, away from the truth I had just discovered. I fought against it, desperate to stay in his presence, to remain in the place where I had finally found clarity, but it was no use. The vision, the light, him, they were all slipping away, and then everything went black. As I stood before the tunnel, hesitation gripped me. Here, in this place of indescribable peace and love, I felt whole. I didn't want to leave. The overwhelming presence of Jesus filled me with a comfort I had never known, and the thought of returning to the broken world I had left behind was almost unbearable. Yet deep within, I knew the truth. This was not my time. Jesus had shown me the two futures that awaited me. One led to self-destruction, a slow and painful decline into regret. The other, a path of redemption, purpose and transformation. I had been given the rarest of gifts, a choice, a glimpse into the consequences of my actions, and in that moment, I made my decision. I turned to him one last time, my heart heavy with the realization that our time together was coming to an end. But before stepping into the tunnel, I couldn't hold back the question that had always haunted me. "Lord, I have heard about your return all my life. When will it happen?" Jesus gazed at me, his expression filled with love and understanding. He didn't seem surprised by my question, as if he had known all along that I would ask. Then he simply said, "Only my Father knows the time, my child." His words carried a weight beyond human comprehension, and in that moment I understood. This was a mystery no one could predict, not even those who had seen beyond the veil of this world. It was not for me to know the hour, but to be ready. I took one last look at him, imprinting every detail into my soul, the warmth of his presence, the depth of his love, things I knew I would never truly be able to put into words once I returned. Then, without another word, I turned toward the tunnel. Suddenly, a force pulled at me, powerful and